Afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Art, thank you to Rayhan and Rebecca and the rest of the Fintech Australia crew for helping put this all together. It's obviously a really great opportunity to be partnering with you guys off the back of the Intersect conference, and I don't know how many people on the call are also attending the Intersect conference, but yeah, it's really awesome to be putting this on. And I'm even more excited to be joined by our four amazing panelists. It took us a few minutes to get everybody on, but we're finally there. And I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in a second. But a bit of background before we actually get started. As Art said, my name is Nick, and I'm an account manager for a little tech company called Facebook. And I'm based up here in Singapore, which is our APAC headquarters. And alongside my colleague Dylan, who's also on the call, who you'll hear from a little bit later, we lead the fintech side of the business for the ANZ market. And we're lucky enough to work with some very high potential, high growth fintechs in the region and help them grow using our advertising solutions. But today's topic of discussion is it's a little bit wide ranging, but we really want to focus on the growth journey of a fintech and specifically how Facebook can kind of play a part in that whole journey. And so today we're going to ask some questions and talk about crucial growth strategy decision making, how you can better leverage partnership with Facebook and our team, some different ad solutions and strategies that have generated success. We'll touch on the age-old question of performance versus brand. And then we'll also talk about some industry trends to be aware of over the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months. And rather than just hearing from me, we're going to talk to some very clever people that have lived the journey and are actually currently still living it. So we've got some folks from Cape, Defer It, Zip, and Lendy, some really awesome businesses that I really respect at different stages with different current objectives and different approaches to growth, and also with different relationships with our team. So maybe just to start, we'll get to know them a little bit better. Let's do some introductions. I might start with John T, who is the CEO and founder of Defer It. Do you want to give us a little bit of background on who you are and what your business is about?
Sure, thanks, Nick. So hi, everyone. I'm John T. I'm one of the co-founders of Defer It. Basically, Defer It, very simply put, it's a bill budgeting platform that helps consumers to pay their bills in installments and over time. So really the problem we're trying to solve is to help customers budget for everyday essential bills. And yeah, I think, Nick, we've been using Facebook for about pretty much our whole life cycle, but it's about 3.5 years now, which matches when we actually started the business as well.
Cool, thanks, John T. I think one phrase that I always hear associated with Defer It is bill now, pay later. I think it's a really clever phrase and never gets old. Thanks so much for being here. I might pass it over to Anton. Do you want to give us a little bit of background on you?
For sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you, meet you. I'm Antoine, so I'm Global Head of Growth at Zip. Zip's basically a buy now, pay later solution for consumer and businesses around the world. We're now in Australia, England, the US, Canada, Mexico, the UK. So super excited to join Zip a year and a half ago on this global expansion journey after spending many years growing businesses over in Latin America on food delivery and later Uber in APAC and Uber Eats. Super excited to be part of this conversation with you guys. I want to thank you, Facebook team and Fintech Australia, for the opportunity. Very excited.
Thank you, mate. I'm just seeing somebody else on the call also labeled Nick McCoy. Can you please go on mute as well? And you keep popping up as me. Looks like it's me.
You have an imposter.
No, you're on mute, Nick.
Perfect. Okay, I'm back. All right. Zara, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, I'm Zara. Apologies for being late. I'm currently working out technical issues in the W Hotel here in Brisbane. I'm on tour with my new Aussie guys, but so I'm the CEO. No, I'm the CMO. I'm very tired. Of Lendy Group now that we are known. So I started with Lendy 3 years ago, really to, I suppose, take them to the next stage of their brand growth, to kind of accelerate really into the kind of mass market category in the home loan space. And just recently, we announced our acquisition of Aussie Home Loans, which is sort of a very different business to ours in the fact that we consider ourselves a fintech company, and we do mortgages brokering. They're a very traditional brokering, but we're really excited to bring that technology to those guys and what that might do for the sort of small business franchisees that are there. And we've had a really great relationship with Facebook these last 3 years, and beyond that, genuine partnership, I would say. And Facebook's a fundamental part of how we've been able to deliver the growth we have.
Amazing. Thank you, Zara. Appreciate you making time while off on the road. And I think the connection is really clear right now. So I think you've worked out the kinks. All right, last but not least, I'll pass it over to Ryan.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you to the Facebook team and Fintech Australia for organising this one. So in terms of Cape, we're designing and building a spend management and corporate card platform that identifies wasteful spending and provides really easy to consume usage analytics and actionable insights from across the organization for business owners and the finance teams. It sounds simple, but actually corporate cards, in terms of the incumbents, actually have incentive mechanisms that try to push people to spend more, and haven't actually got the financial health of the business at the forefront of their mind. So we're really kind of focused on getting this trifecta of a corporate card, a software platform, and finance team all aligned with the same goal. And that's what we're building out. And I guess on the Facebook side, we've been working with you guys now, I mean, it's pretty much since day dot, which kind of is literally about 6 months, 7 months. But it's been fantastic. Like, you know, Nick over in Singapore and the other Nick in terms of Australia have been a real support to us as we've been just getting to market and just trying to get user research because we're pre-launch. So for us, we just get to the start line.
Incredible. Thanks, Ryan. Ryan and I've been talking quite a lot recently, and I feel like every time I speak to you, you're either about to go surfing or just coming back from surfing. Is that the plan after this panel ends?
It's pretty flat out there right now. I tried going out. It's not great conditions. So it's more of a swim day, but I swear I do work genuinely.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you guys. Really great intros. Let's just jump into a few questions. I really want to touch a little bit more on the journey. And I think it's been an interesting 12 months for everyone. And Zara, I'd really like to start with you. I think between the acquisition of Aussie Home Loans and COVID, Lendy's been on a pretty interesting journey the last 12 months. I was hoping you could touch on what that's been like and some of the crucial decisions you've had to make from a growth perspective during that time.
Yeah, so I think the last 12 months, I caveat a lot when I talk about our success in the last 12 months with it's been a truly horrific 12 months for an awful lot of people and an awful lot of businesses, and I do temper this often with I acknowledge that, you know, it's not been great for everyone, but for us what was exciting in COVID, there was kind of a few things. We are a digital home loans platform. So essentially we have built a platform that sits between a broker and a customer. And it essentially automates a whole bunch of tasks that normally took hours, days, weeks, months in a broker's world and also in a customer's world. And we've always sort of struggled, I suppose, to really explain that, the sort of define what we are to customers. And so we had kept quite top, relatively top level. We're a mortgage broking company. You can come and get a mortgage with us. We've got 37 lenders on the panel, etc. What was really interesting when COVID hit was we were born for COVID, right? We had this incredible perfect storm where we had a platform that was built to service customers when they couldn't leave their home or they didn't want to. And COVID happened and they weren't allowed to. And the RBA happened and dropped the cash rate 3 times. So you had this moment in time where money had never been cheaper and home financing has never been cheaper than it is today. We had this platform that was proven, tested, 100, 200 brokers ready to go. And really for us, we had to just pivot as quickly as possible and really start to dial up some of those key messages, and just, I suppose, get right back down to basics when it came to how we talk to customers and how we kind of made people aware of what we were and how, even though you were stuck at home, you could still access, the 1.89 from Westpac rate, and you could do it all without leaving your home. You don't need to go see a bank and a lender anymore. And so I think for us, COVID almost accelerated what was going to be a 2 to 3 year game plan around how we really built that brand awareness and probably more so consideration of the platform and how it's different to that traditional kind of broking model. And we just kind of had to do that in probably about 3 weeks at the beginning. And it was just about how do we break down this complexity and then seed it out to customers in ways that they could digest it and get the difference and what we were compared to others. So, we have had an extraordinary growth year, obviously helped by macro financial realities, and we're very aware of that. And we thank the RBA for their rate reducing. But we also really, I think, we moved really, really quickly to capitalize on on the situation, if you like. And yeah, Facebook was a really big part of that. And it was a really important connector to audiences, both existing, talking about refinancing and new audiences as well, who had probably never considered us before because they were just used to the old model. And I think through that as well, what became apparent is that technology in this category is the future. Technology is what's going to move mortgage broking into the next phase of its evolution. And that's where kind of Aussie then came into play. And what's really exciting is we've got this platform that's ready for however many brokers, and Aussie have 1,200 and odd brokers, 220 stores. And now we're looking at, now we're putting that technology in the hands of like quadruple the amount of people. And it's only going to be great for customers and brokers alike.
Wow. Great summary. I know I've definitely put you on the hot seat there. There's a lot of things to cover in such a short amount of time, but I do remember speaking to you roughly a year ago now, actually, on a similar panel. And one thing that's really stuck in my mind is something you said. You said, brokers have finally got their blank together. And that's something that's really stuck with me. And I think it's really interesting how you've kind of seized the opportunity, or made the best of a situation and really kind of accelerated that growth and made those changes that you needed to over a short amount of time. to not only get through the COVID time period, but also grow exponentially during that time. So thanks so much for sharing that. I might actually pivot now to Antoine, who I think has been a part of Zip during also a very interesting time over the last 12 months. And you know, I'd love to kind of hear your experience during the pandemic, but also if you could touch on how your relationship with Facebook has changed from just working on ads marketing to enterprise. Because I know recently you've just signed that you signed a partnership with us, integrating the product and allowing SMBs to start paying for Facebook ads using Zip. Can you just touch on like the last 12 months for you and the team?
For sure, yeah. The pandemic was a very interesting time. I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I had literally just joined Zip. I think the 1st of February was my first day. And a month in, this kicked in and no one quite knew what was going to happen. It happened to be, I think, one of the strongest months for the business in March and April, because at the back of the first lockdown, people were all of a sudden buying all their equipments for home office and things like that, and new mattresses, and Zip was a great way to afford that and be able to get equipped quickly for integrations with merchants like Officeworks and things like that. So we had to ramp up our game pretty quickly, which was awesome, and it was a intense phase for us to provide financial support and staff up the team adequately. One thing that we quickly decided to do is to pivot to a business offering. We saw how much consumers were loving the product. We thought we need to do something for businesses, and we created this umbrella Zip business brand, which would then become the single sort of account for trade needs, as well as payment solutions and capital needs. So offering loans up to $500,000. And this is what we approached Facebook with is, so we're launching this product focusing on Zip Business Trade, which is the buy now, pay later solution for your business. We do want to promote it with ads. Let's do that. Let's target audiences and be smart about how to optimize. But what else can we do together, leveraging technical partnerships? And this is when the idea came up to be buying advertising through Zip and offer businesses to access at a small discount as well, their first Facebook advertising and providing guidance there. I think what was key is basically to put all these ideas sort of on a plan together, involve leadership, show commitments, and sort of like identify the key, like in the roadmap, what would be the key enablers. One of them was the integration with Adyen, so a payment solution platform that would enable Zip to be a payment choice on Facebook. I think we both saw the opportunity because for Zip, it's all about putting buyers in front of sellers and the other way around. And offering Facebook advertising is the quickest way for any business to get traction. Being on the Zip platform is also one. So it was a perfectly aligned sort of common interest there that would benefit businesses greatly. And probably that partnership, that step is the first one, I would say. There's heaps of opportunities to play together in the payment space. And so mapping out those opportunities locally versus globally, I think is what got everyone excited.
Cool. Yeah, and what I hear a lot, what I heard a lot from during your answer is making sure there's real alignment in terms of objectives. And I think you just mentioned the phrase like putting that partnership down on a page. You know, I've been really, even though you and I haven't really worked too much together, I know sort of, it's been very interesting to see kind of that partnership develop over time. And I think it's definitely something to kind of aspire to, you know, the level of partnership that's been able to develop between your team and our team. And I think it requires that really tight-knit communication. And making sure that we both really understand each other's objectives. And on that note, I was hoping to also get Jonty's take on this as well. And you mentioned that you've been working with Facebook basically since you started over the last couple of years. And I'm curious to kind of just hear the role Facebook has kind of played in your journey and what you think has been kind of crucial to that partnership.
Sure. It's a good question. I think I think it goes and it goes to the stage you're at when you start one of these sorts of businesses and you're at idea phase. And I think for us, myself and my co-founder, we didn't really come from the tech ecosystem. We kind of worked in finance, but we didn't really know any VCs. We didn't know how to raise capital. We didn't really know how to do anything. And for us, when we started the business, we kind of try to fund it ourselves at the beginning. And anyone will know that, you know, obviously getting a business off from scratch is probably the hardest part of the journey. And what you really want to try and do as quickly as possible is try and find product market fit. And for us, Facebook back then, it was pretty much the only thing, like through research, that we just fell upon. It was basically Facebook or Google, and we kind of felt more comfortable in learning Facebook. It seemed easier and just more intuitive. But for us, it was basically the platform that we said, okay, let's do our test in and see if we can get consumers to actually come to. And back then it wasn't even a proper product, it was just a landing site. It was, can we get people to come and see if there's interest in the product? And so for us, Facebook's really been the tool that helped us find product market fit. And then once we establish that, it's been the tool that then it starts to iterate on itself. And it's like, okay, cool, how do we use it to actually get further volume and further scale the product? Going to the second part of your question, Nick, I think what's crucial for us is we've had a very close relationship, I think, with our account manager, and that's been Dylan. And initially it was Dylan and myself for quite a while. Now it's Dylan and Jeremy who heads up our marketing. And I think part of that relationship and the guidance that we get from Dylan has been kind of very instrumental into us staying with Facebook, using Facebook, and basically using Facebook at the most optimized level, which is what kind of keeps us there. So yeah.
Cool. And we could definitely touch on some of the solutions that you guys have used a little bit later. From what I understand, I'm glad you called out Dylan, because from what I understand, you guys had an interesting first conversation. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought he called me, and I didn't even know that there were account managers at Facebook. So I thought, and I couldn't hear background noise, so I thought he was a telemarketer. So I was like, wow, I couldn't hear him. So it was quite a rough conversation. I think the first conversation, he had to call me back a second time, and he had a bit of trepidation in his voice. So we got there. Hey, Dylan.
Nice. Well, I'm glad he called back in the end, because now we're here. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'd also like to hear from Ryan. You know, you kind of mentioned you've been working with us for like the last 6 months. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you know, what are some of the things that have really worked for you? What sort of things have we actually worked on? And I'm actually curious, as somebody that's leading a pre-launch fintech, is there a role that Facebook can play in capital raising and kind of growing the business outside of just marketing?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, so to tackle a story that kind of really resonates with me, having landed during the pandemic and like obviously an unprecedented time to like actually go to look to launch some type of fintech offering. And clearly there's a bit of overlap in terms of thinking with what Antoine was talking about. And when we first started off, we were looking at something which was a lot more heavily steered towards working capital. So there's obviously loads of stats out there that talk about that. But just listening to Jonty and hearing him kind of articulate that point really well about the product market fit, landing here with no network, not knowing anybody, and with no ability to go to events like Intersect, like this is like talking about last year, or you know, just basically being able to network anywhere, you were kind of limited in terms of getting out and starting to get a steer of where the pain points were. And we really were quite fortunate to get to start speaking to you guys in terms of our like utilizing Facebook to start doing some user research. And I'd say that was probably the starting point for us in terms of trying to understand where the pain point was. And what we saw, I guess, kind of through the pandemic is the shift really to everybody moving towards, I guess, kind of remote or hybrid work. And what we hadn't really necessarily seen is, had the tools really kept a pace with that change? And yeah, with that change, there's obviously a lot more friction between employees and employers when it comes to actually spending money, as opposed to just the working capital piece. And actually through Facebook, we're able to start actually just split testing different ads and actually just start getting responses and kind of understanding where the pain point is, start generating leads, and then start going into user interviews. And I'd say that's probably been two sides of the same coin, kind of, which is user research, customer interviews, and then helping use that to then inform the direction that we take in terms of the roadmap and like really refine it. And that's been, I'd say, invaluable for us. So yeah, Facebook's done an Instagram, I think, is a natural platform to interact with our audience. And yeah, it's helped to shape our roadmap as we build up to go live. So super useful, and build a wait list as well. The other question, can Facebook, is there room to do things outside of just marketing, lead gen, research? Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, I guess the way that I've always kind of looked at things is 3 C's in terms of building blocks of a business. So content, community, commerce. It's kind of half in the community or the marketing space, but I would say Facebook has been fantastic to build a community and a following, and to kind of just provide updates of milestones. And we've made a really intentional effort to actually build out Cape in public. A lot of people do it in stealth, in private. They don't want everybody to see what they're doing. We've taken a really different approach, which is to say, you know what, we need to get feedback and we need to pivot along the way. And if people want to, because a lot of the time why people don't do this stuff in the public is because the fear of copycats coming along and replicating. But you've got to take that as a compliment. So we've been really open in terms of building a community, and in that community, yeah, some of them are potential early adopters. But actually, there's investors and a variety of people that have come through from that community that we're building. So I think that's one of the key things, is being able to build a community, update, show the following, and that's good. And then the other side, building a platform like Cape, it's incredibly, we depend a lot on software engineers, and it turns out in Australia they're in short supply. So you've got to get creative when it comes to finding talent. And actually, for us, the thing that we've realized is we've got to double down in terms of employee branding, employee marketing. I would say that that's an area of opportunity for us. And it's definitely something that we're looking at Facebook for, because I think it's a great way just to kind of inform the followers in terms of all the people out there that we hope will work with us or for us, in terms of what it's like to be with Cape and what our mission is. So I guess that's something else which is really important for us.
Amazing. Thanks, Ryan. Great answer to finish there on in terms of growth journey. And I love the content, community, commerce piece. You mentioned A/B testing and kind of throwing things out there to see sort of what's stuck, lead gen, building a wait list. And so I kind of wanted to pivot from there into some more specific ad solutions. And I might actually start with Zara. I think this is kind of linked to what you were talking about in terms of your journey over the last 12 months in innovation and quick innovation and having to come up with new things on the fly. You've sort of been featured in a handful of case studies with us, and you've always kind of placed a really strong emphasis on testing and tweaking, especially on the creative front. Are you able to talk through, some of the new things that you've tried out from an ad solutions perspective, and which ones have really worked out?
Yeah, so we as a startup, will forever be a startup even today. I've never really bought into the polished finished result ads thing. And I think for Facebook, that's probably never truer than in that forum. what you've got is a social media platform at its heart. You've got people sharing pictures of their dogs and their cats and their dinner and how big a sausage is and what a weird looking carrot they found in the, you know. And I think you have to kind of respect that. And I think as a brand, we've always used the platform to be as authentic as we can with our customers, because that's who we are as a brand. So in COVID, we've tweaked creative. We have at any given time hundreds of different ad formats and creatives running in across the site. Some of them are very focused on lead gen. Some of them are just about information and content distribution. But during COVID, what we did was we moved to a content first approach, and that content wasn't polished. It wasn't in a studio. It was literally, we had how-to videos with one of our L&D leads in her dining room table, talking about what it means to refinance using the platform. We were giving away ebooks and different useful tools, and we really focused hard on that and kind of let the lead gen play a secondary role. And what we found, which is really reassuring and also positive, is customers they don't need to see some shiny brand. They don't need to see some $30,000 ad on Facebook to resonate with you and build trust with you. What they need is for you to be useful to them. Ultimately, customers just, they gravitate towards brands that are giving them something that's useful and helpful in their world. And for us, we saw that return dividends by just sort of almost sending information out there that we thought was important. We did, one really great example is we would do a really quick RBA update post the RBA, but more so, what does it actually mean? And those just, those sorts of things were just super helpful for people. They weren't a lead gen for us. We weren't asking people to sign up to get that information. It was literally, here's some experts giving you some free advice or information on what you should be thinking about next. What we saw was, number one, people really liked that interaction, and number two, they ended up in our world because customers, they liked that we were helpful. So I think for me, don't be afraid to just throw something out there and see if it sticks. If it doesn't, tear it down. If it does, make it better. And Facebook's been really great for that for us, and working with the team as well. We do a fair bit of kind of consultancy with our Facebook team. So Rory, and my guys reach out and test stuff. We try and break it where we can, see how far we can push the envelope on stuff. We built a gamification kind of calculator for refinance within the Facebook portal, and everyone said, the majority of people were like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think people are going to want to use it. And it was huge and a really important part of our strategy. So I don't know if that answered your question, but.
No, it does. And I feel like you actually touched on something really important at the beginning, which was around just providing users with information. And that's also something that is that we've been seeing in terms of a bigger or a stronger need for users to improve their financial literacy. So I think during the COVID pandemic, people have been a lot more conscious of what they're spending and what, the different financial products that they're using. And so they're really looking for brands that can help them gain a better understanding of some of those financial products. And if you are a brand that's able to put out content that is literally just that, it's just helpful, that then you're able to kind of build a stronger connection with this brand. And ultimately, it's going to be easier for you to turn them into customers. And so, that was definitely
the other thing that was really super helpful. So there's information kind of pushing it out. The other thing we did was we actually built a group, and it sounds really basic, but we were getting so many kind of people saying they have tiny questions, and they didn't think they were important questions to be asking their broker, but they didn't know how to answer them. So we created a group called Home Loan Hacks, and it's a closed group. So it's actually a private group, and we're branded in there. They know it's our group, and it's customers answering other customers' questions. So we just facilitated that connection, and we kind of add a few bits here and there, but for the most part, and it's a really interesting group, they answer each other's questions, and it's all those questions that customers don't feel like it's a big enough question to ask to the broker. And these are customers helping each other, and it's a really nice community in there. And yeah, it's branded, but it feels really organic.
Amazing. Cool. Yeah, really interesting. And I think just making sort of a mental note, definitely want to share some of the industry research that we've done around financial literacy. So thanks so much for bringing that up. I might throw it over to Antoine actually. And I feel like most of us have seen the recent work that Zip's done with Nick Kyrgios and the Can You Zip It campaign. But for anybody that hasn't heard about it, are you able to share a bit about the campaign and what sort of made it so successful?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it started maybe 6-8 months ago when we got in a room together and we thought, all right, we're going to launch this amazing product that we're calling Tap and Zip, which is basically a tap and pay integration, allowing customers to pay with Zip anywhere at any store that has a tap and pay payments terminal. What's the best, easiest, most catchy way to communicate that? And at the back of that came the song, which was the first thing we had. The song was A Tribe Called Quest song. Can I kick it? Yes, you can. We turned it into Can I zip it? Yes, you can. Can I zip it? Yes, you can. Can I zip it? Yes, you can. Cool. We had a song. That's not a campaign just yet. So what do we do around it? And we sort of tested that against a few ideas. And this is when we looked into the Facebook Creative Shop, actually, to try and help us there with our creative agency, We Are Social. And what we wanted was to design a campaign with social in mind, but design it for social, for Reels even. That was basically the primary platform we intended for this campaign. How do we design content, 15-second content that can be consumed in the same way that we know our target audience consumes content on these platforms? And I think that was the key. So we basically, we wanted to sort of break through as well a little bit. So we wanted to differ from what the category usually does with very sort of like rational and specific and technical sort of key benefits around interest-free payments, etc., and split payments. We wanted to be emotional. We wanted to connect with specific audiences through talents. So this is when we decided to bring talents into the mix and say, we're basically going to borrow their brand equity and how they cut through to specific audiences. Everyone knows Nick Kyrgios. Not everyone loves him, but everyone knows him and everyone notices him. And this is kind of what the campaign is designed to do, is you notice it and you go, what the hell, what's going on here? And it's hectic. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, hang on, I need to breathe for a second. But this is basically what we wanted to do, and then cut through with some messaging that we are different because we are everywhere. So I think that's what made the campaign so successful, is to try and cut through with a specific platform in mind, a specific audience in mind, and doing so through talents that we know resonate with them, to cut through. And the success is basically great recall, great awareness lift, and great consideration lift. So it is really a brand campaign in that sense, that we went mass scale with this. The performance strategy is I would say totally separate, but the brand strategy is very clear. And I think there'll be iterations of this. I think our creative team is probably dreaming about turning our talents into finfluencers. I think they'd love to have, if you're familiar with the Margot Robbie scene in The Big Short, where she sort of goes through very technical financial terms in her bathtub, they'll love to have Nick Kyrgios do that in the exact same way. So this is probably where this is going in the future. It will be very cool.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and I love how you mentioned the right at the end there, the word finfluencer. I'm not sure if it quite rolls off the tongue just yet, but it's definitely something that's getting a lot bigger. And obviously you guys had the opportunity of working directly with someone like Nick Kyrgios, who has a big following. People are really they know who he is. The other thing that we've been kind of seeing is that, you know, even just working with what we consider to be like micro influencers is something that users are definitely really being drawn to. And so it's a big opportunity for brands to do that. And that's something as a team we've been trying to explore. And I think what it comes down to is just building content that is really resonating with that demographic that you're trying to go after. And I wanted to actually pivot there to ask Ryan a question, because we had a really interesting conversation a couple of months ago around digital transformation and open banking, and specifically on, I guess, building a product, but also building content that is really resonating with millennials. I just wanted to hear from Ryan, what's your advice for brands that are really trying to connect with that demographic?
Oh, yeah, great question. I think Zara actually summed it up incredibly well earlier on when she was talking about the need to have authenticity and a clear tone of voice. I love the approach that Lendi has in terms of being content led, and it's definitely something that's at the center of what we're trying to do. So I think that's like goes without saying. From a product perspective, I guess the important thing to kind of think about is what's the direction of travel, generally speaking, in terms of how millennials want to interact with products. And I think especially with the emergence of things like open banking, open data, this side of things, you know, what we're definitely seeing is people don't really care about, you know, the technology or how things are done. What they care about is really what it allows them to do. And, you know, I'd say over the last decade, we've seen it within the consumer space in terms of these customer journeys where there is no moment of payment, right? You think about ordering an Uber or getting your delivery for your Friday night, okay? It's a click or a couple clicks and you're done. And I'd say that that customer experience and that customer journey is now the benchmark of what we expect across everything. That's the hygiene factor in terms of being incredibly product led. And if I look in terms of the banking space right now, you know, it's one of those few products where really, if you ask anybody out there, you know, what's your feelings towards your current account, whether it's your personal or your business current account. And generally speaking, you know, the NPS scores tell the story themselves, which is people just don't like them. And people don't enjoy the experience of dealing with their bank. That's it. But when it comes to, well, why don't you change? Why don't you do something? And that's a very different matter. And I'd say open banking is obviously offering, and the open data movement, but it's offering an opportunity to build different services and to be able to affordably acquire customers. And on the consumer side, you know, if you look at some of the players that are out there, I'd say Upbank in particular, I'm sure there's a number of people out there that have got their products. They're doing an amazing job in terms of, you know, building banking and financial products which suit the lifestyle of the individuals. Whether that's splitting bills or rent or creating joint accounts, it's quite a seamless experience. And I think they're doing a great job on that. And then aside from that, I think it's really more of an obsession when it comes to the brand as well as the tone of voice, but really kind of just thinking about the UI, the UX, having you know, something which is on par with everything else that you use in your day-to-day life. And then, yeah, I guess the kind of other side of this, being a new entrant into the market, you've got to kind of be mindful of trust. And again, how do you build trust? Because it takes an inordinate amount of time in this space, especially in banking and financial services, to build trust and credibility. And all it takes is one mishap for that then to go away. So there is a number of things that you've got to get right as a new entrant, and you cannot afford to get them wrong, especially when it comes to the fraud and the risk elements of your business. So you've got to get those right. And then you've got to go another level in terms of how do you communicate and build a narrative and a relationship with your customers. And that's where you've got to kind of think about using the digital channels, which obviously you guys lend into.
Cool. I love that. And I think it's one of those things where once again, it's we're building something for the customers that we're going after. And I think if you take that approach, right, and I feel like fintechs are generally pretty good at this, then you're going to be able to build that brand equity, and you're going to be able to build that trust. And I think one of the things that I love that you said a couple months ago is not necessarily trying to communicate all of the technical elements of what you're doing, so people don't really care too much about the specifics, but just communicate how specifically it's going to benefit them, right? So people don't care about open banking so much. They really just care about whether or not they can pay their mates back for beer the night before. It's a really good line that Ryan dropped a few months ago. Cool, thanks for that. I think what we've heard a lot of is about millennials and brand and finfluencers and all these different things. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit just about performance. And I feel like one of those things that is really on everyone's mind right now is kind of the changing digital ecosystem, ITP, cookies, and that sort of thing. And so John T, I wanted to actually ask you just quickly, I know you recently published a case study on one of our newer products, Conversions API. Are you able to touch on kind of like the decision behind prioritizing that product? Maybe for everybody that doesn't know specifically what it is, can you explain a little bit about what it is, and also how you executed it, and what were the results?
Sure. I might use a simple example because our products are a little bit more complicated, but I guess picture this. So you're in a world where you come into a checkout on an online retailer and you're in the add to cart stage and you check out and you say purchase. Generally in today's world, when you're doing that, it's triggering an event through the pixel, and somehow it's connected with cookies. I'm not too technical, but basically it sends that message and Facebook can pick it up. And if you run in a conversion campaign in Facebook, what's generally happened to date was you say you get 20, 30 people that do that. Facebook starts to build an idea of what kind of people are likely to convert on your site, and it will start trying to get more people your ads for that conversion campaign to try and get them to do a similar action. We're now moving into a world where privacy concerns and tracking and what people do is becoming more important. And so what's starting to happen is, and it's basically been phased in, you can pretty much see it's happening already on the iOS Apple side, is there's starting to be a disconnect between what information can be sent to Facebook through, I guess, the public networks. And so Conversions API is a product where instead of the customer hitting the button and it sends and it picks it up via the cookies, it's basically you get a purchase on, someone buys, say, a pair of jeans. In your backend, in your database, you get the name and all the information on the consumer, and you connect your database to Facebook. So you send it via API from your database into Facebook, and you say, hey, I just got this person who bought something from me. Can you find similar people? And then Facebook can optimize through that, and it solves for a lot of the privacy concerns, because basically it's governed by your privacy policy and it's your data of your CRM that you are using to optimize your spend. Yeah, we move towards it, I guess, because it's not such a huge issue now, but I think in the next few years, it's going to become more and more relevant. And I guess we'd like to kind of try and stay ahead of the trend. But I think with the stuff happening with Apple and a few other things, it's already starting to become more relevant. And we just wanted to prioritize it and follow best practice, basically. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that was a really good, maybe that's something that we should take note on, because it's a really good explanation of what Conversions API is. And I think this is probably one of those things that Facebook and our team has really prioritized, and something that we're really trying actively for businesses to implement, just in light of all the changes that are happening in the digital ecosystem. And I can pretty confidently say it's based in that. And so with that, I get quick fire around the room. I was hoping to hear from everyone if you could share one industry trend that keeps you up at night, and one that gets you really excited. Maybe I'll start with Antoine.
Sure thing. The one that keeps me up at night is I can't believe how many people still heavily rely on retargeting. And by retargeting, what I mean is, you know, someone's visited your website and you've kind of captured interest there, and then you're sort of hammering this person. It's very spammy for the user. And every time I've measured it, it brings very low incrementality. I think the algorithms, especially on Facebook, are strong enough to figure out who to target with the right level of frequency, and retargeting skews that towards a very, very small audience that gets to see ads 3-4 times more with a very limited uplift, because they're already considering and they can make their own decisions at this point. So I think trust in the process and trust in the algorithms, broadening your audiences is the best practice that everyone should be adopting, and retargeting should not be a trend anymore. But this may be controversial, I don't know. The need for transparency, which is kind of related to like the data optimization and the privacy changes recently, is actually one that really excites me. So I think the more transparent brands are about what they do and how they do it, the more customers trust those brands. Things like brand vision, brand mission, the purpose that a business serves in the world, the principles it abides by, all those things are increasingly important. And so as advertisers, we need to learn to feature and showcase that just as much as value props and selling points in our advertising. And this really excites me because it brings balance in the world. So I love that.
I love that balance in the world. Maybe I'll throw it over to Zara. Just in the interest of time, maybe just one thing that gets you excited, one trend that gets you excited. We'll keep it positive.
One thing that gets me excited, I'm just always excited. I think I'm actually not, but I think one of the there's just so much change happening. I think the cookies and the no cookies and the UIDs and XUI, like, I think all of this is this disruption will generally bring with it innovation. And I think these are big changes that we're talking about, and they're good and they're positive changes. And I think probably a little bit, you know, late in my opinion. But I think with that, you see the emergence of, you know, small technology players, platforms, and you can see people really starting to get creative again with how we go about finding people, how we go about kind of looking for the right audiences. And I also agree with your retargeting point as well, Anton. I think it's pointless exercise. Why do you want the same people? Like, surely you want to grow your business, you're going to end up at the bottom of the barrel. But yeah, I don't really have a single thing. I know that's a cop-out, but I'm actually excited. I think there's lots of worrying changes, and I think what will happen is innovation will come off the back of it, and I'm excited to see like who's going to pop up to start solving some of these problems for us.
Thanks, Sarah. Throw it over to Ryan.
Yeah, I guess a slightly different take in terms of, as opposed to just being kind of heavily on the marketing side, although it kind of delves into a little bit of what we've been talking about, and it's definitely in the data spaces, open banking, but more broadly open data, and I guess just generally speaking, the whole movement towards the API economy. I think it is an incredibly exciting time that we actually live in if you're a product person, entrepreneur, founder, and the accessibility that you've got to now go take on some of the biggest players that are out there. I mean, I think the pandemic literally turned everything upside down overnight. And what we're seeing through that is we're literally seeing a game of snakes and ladders play out. With incumbents and other folk, you know, again, going further down, and actually the API economy really is offering an opportunity for smaller, nimbler startups to come in and to just leapfrog above them. So yeah, I think that for me, API economy, obviously in terms of ourselves, whether it's in the consumer lens or whether it's the SME lens, yeah, I love nothing more than seeing, you know, a focus on the kind of underserved, underbanked part of the actual industry. And I think just with all of this data that's now coming available, which was previously for centuries hidden and hoarded by banks, all of a sudden, you know, there was literally a straw going out and allows me to go get that data and build stuff that was never actually achievable before. And I think that is just incredibly exciting. So that for me is the thing that I'm excited by.
Amazing. Thanks, Ryan. I'll finish with John T. John T, if you could quick, because I want to give Dylan enough time as well to finish off.
Sure, my connection seems to be breaking up, so I'm not sure if I'm breaking up. I'll be quick. I'm excited about
You're all good.
the digital economy shift. I think the pandemic's brought it forward about 10 years. And I think for everyone listening, there's a lot of opportunity through digital marketing to try and capture that trend.
Amazing. It looks like you just cut. Oh, I just cut off on the. Oh no, now you're back. All good. Thanks, John T. Look, we're just kind of approaching time. There was a lot of talking. I'll give you guys a break, but massive thank you to all of you guys for joining. I'm gonna throw it over to my main man Dylan. I think he's got some resources that we want to share off the back of this for anybody that's watching live, but also for anybody that's watching this after the fact. Dylan, I'll hand.
Cool. Massive thank you to everyone here. I think every time I attend these sessions, I find it really inspiring and motivational. So once again, big thank you. I'll be quickly sharing my screen now with everyone. Just give me a thumbs up if you're able to see it. Cool, awesome. Yeah, for those who do not know me, I'm Dylan, account manager at Facebook. Just have 2 key points to cover. First, right off the bat, on the right of the screen, you can see a QR code. So do go ahead and scan it as I'm speaking. So this is where we would love to collect feedback on today's event. And also, if you'd like to see something similar in the future, do let us know there. Also, if you would love to connect with us, have a chat and to get the team to get to know our team a bit more, feel free to indicate in that form as well. I saw a question by Robin earlier on, and thanks, John T, for answering that. I wanted to caveat that it's not really a number or a spend that is indication. It's kind of like a guidance or a way that we think about prioritizing, because we have a really lean team. But if you would love to talk to us and partner with us moving forward, feel free to indicate in that form as well. The second point is on resources. So we have prepared specially a takeaway resource package for today's attendees. So in there, you can find a collection of resources and important links specific to whichever part of the marketing journey that you're on. And also finally, we have really great case studies in there as well, some of which obviously from our panels today, and also broadly some case studies in the financial services space in the US and as well as in Australia. So do look out for that as well. And in there, they will talk about stories of how businesses use our platform and also the partnerships that we have built over the years to drive success for the business, which you can do as well. So I'm just going to round it out. Again, massive thank you for the panelists and also all the attendees that have taken the time today to join us. Yeah, there's nothing else. Have a great Friday afternoon and an awesome weekend ahead.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Antoine, John T, Zara, Ryan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a million. All right. See you later. Bye.